going on, everybody? We are back. We have episode number 63 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week, we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 36, Derek Brunson versus Darren Till. Should be a pretty fun card. You got a nice little afternoon start time, so our European friends don't have to be up till 6 a.m., and we can actually do things on Saturday night, so that's cool. As usual, brought to you guys by betonline.ag for a 50% bonus up to your first $1,000 deposit. Use the promo code CLUBSUB. And tonight, none of the other guys were able to join me, so you have me, John Stargarian, MMA Fox, and my boy Andrew from MMA Knockout Bets has decided to join us tonight as well. So we're going to break it down for you. Andrew's really sharp, so it should be fun and hopefully an informational pod. Andrew, any thoughts on the card before we jump into it?
Yeah, dude, this card sucks for betting. I kind of wish we were breaking down the one after this or the one after that. But it's always a fun time. I appreciate you having me, as usual. And let's get it.
Yeah, dude, agreed. So we get into the first fight of the night. We got Jonathan Martinez versus Marcelo Rojo. Andrew, what do you think here?
Yeah, I don't have any plays on this right now, but I kind of think Rojo's the side. I think Martinez is good when he's at range kickboxing, but I think Rojo might have some success, especially early, crashing the pocket, putting pressure on Martinez, getting him to fight off that back foot. The thing that's holding me off on the Rojo side is I kind of think sometimes he's a little hittable, and I don't love his cardio. I get that his last fight was up a weight at 145, so I expect, and it was on short notice, so I expect it to be a little better here. But I think down the stretch, I probably trust Martinez a little more, and I think. Like I said, I think Rojo's the side, but it's not a super strong conviction. I don't hate the under in the spot either. I think they both could probably land some good pops, but curious to hear your thoughts.
I actually feel kind of the same way, except the opposite. Like, I was almost certain I was going to play Martinez pre-tape, but then after taping was like, I don't really know. Like, I really do think early in this fight, Rojo is going to be really dangerous. Like, I did not really like the way Martinez reacted to Grant going forward on him the way he did. Like, it seemed like as soon as Grant started going forward, Martinez kind of got rid of, like, just lost all of his ideas and didn't really know what to do. But at the same time, like, I do think in terms of like their fundamental striking, Martinez is a lot better and a lot sharper. And so, like, and if Martinez were to grapple, which I don't expect him to, but if he were to grapple, I think he'd have a big like advantage there. But at the same time, you know, kind of to your point, I think Rojo can do some things that stylistically pose challenges, even though I do think Martinez is far more skilled personally. So I'm passing it probably. Maybe the line comes in. I do like the under as well, though, and I actually think Rojo KO won. What was it? Plus 450.
Is it?
Might have even been.
I thought
Rojo KO is plus 450, which I actually don't mind because I kind of think. I'm curious what you think, but I kind of think if it goes to the cards, it probably favors Martinez pretty heavily.
Yeah, I feel like Rojo wins round one at a pretty good clip, but I feel like Martinez wins three at a pretty good clip. So it's just one of those things where it like could come down to the second round, and like I don't know. I'm sure you're the same way as me. Where like these fights aren't really my style in terms of like having a strong conviction, but like I slightly lean Rojo, especially early. I think he could hurt Martinez and kind of build up a little lead, and then it's just about hanging on from there. But again, not like a super strong take.
Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way. So we move on. We got a pretty fun fight between Untitled Champion taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. And I actually played Barriault here. I had 2 units on him, and I think like minus 140. I guess like I don't think Barriault does anything great except cardio and durability and his willingness to go forward. But like he doesn't really do anything bad. Like his get-up game has seemed pretty solid. His takedown defense for the most part isn't awful. And so like Dalsha, on the other hand, is remarkably low volume in the feet, fights entirely high energy, doesn't really have more than 7 minutes of cardio. And while I do think he's explosive enough to land takedowns, like I don't think I'm pretty sure he can't hold Barriault down. And like if you're going to tell me he's going to do what Sanchez did, like I'm pretty sure he's not going to have the cardio to fight at that pace for more than a round. And so like with that being the case, it's like, yeah, I guess he could steal a decision, maybe get enough control time in round 2. But like I think the biggest portion of his win condition is an early KO standing, and he is fast and hits hard, but it's hard for me to price that too hard, especially since Barriault does seem super durable and actually has decent defense in the pocket. And so I just kind of think Barriault should be like 65, 70% here. Like I don't think a Dodger KO is a very high outcome, and I think a decision would be a pretty low outcome personally. What do you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. I actually bet on Barrial pretty big in his last fight against Abu Azai, and I got that inside distance cash in the last round. I think that's who it was, right? Against Itar or whatever his name is. And I was also on Dolce in his last fight too. And it's funny because you'd expect if I bet both of them to be like relatively high on them, and I'm not really high on either. I think like Dolce is a weird spot. Normally, if you have a guy who's so low volume but hits hard, it's like okay, maybe like his inside distance is worth a pop. But if his like takedown, like he's no threat for a submission on top, and he doesn't really have great ground and pound, doesn't look to pass, so you can't even really play the inside distance prop because a decent part of his win. What the hell is the word I'm looking for? Is
Win equity.
Win condition is like a wrestle fuck, so to speak. But I don't really see that happening here. Maybe early Dolce can get a takedown or two, but to your point, he doesn't do much. His cardio is not great. I just hate how hittable Barrial is. Like you said, I think you nailed it perfectly. The Barrial isn't really like super good at anything, but he's durable and he's better cardio. So I'm probably staying away here unless like I don't know. I haven't looked at the props, but maybe like Barrial at round 3 might be worth a crack or something like that. But again, this one's not really in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, fair. Moving on, we got a banger. This actually might be the best fight of the night on paper for as long as it lasts. We got Julian Arosa taking on Charles Jourdain. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, to your point, I think this could be the best fight just in terms of entertainment. Both these guys can crack. Arosa kind of just moves forward. He's hittable. He relies on his chin, which has hurt him in the past against big hitters. He's taking this fight on short notice. I found out today that it's at 150 instead of 145. Arosa's pretty big as is. Jourdain's last fight was against Rojo, who was coming up from 35. So maybe a little bit of a size difference between the two of them. But I still favor Jourdain to win. I think Arosa has some pretty big defensive flaws. Not to say he can't land a shot, or if he does survive, he can't win down the line, but I definitely favor Jourdain. I haven't played it just because I kind of think this is going to be a striking fight where they both land some good shots. But I think if you put a gun to my head, I'd say Jourdain KOs him.
Yeah, it's weird because like you're right. Like Arosa does have major flaws, and like in my head, it's hard not to picture him getting knocked out here, right? Like you've just seen it so many times. But like also when I think about it, I'm like, man, like is Arosa any less skilled at anything than Jourdain? Like I'm not sure he is. Like I think Jourdain's an okay striker, but I think he's more like dynamic than he is like good minute to minute, you know? Whereas, you know, Arosa, like you said, he's big, he's gonna go forward, he throws a lot. If anybody has grappling upside in this fight, it's probably him. But again, and so it's like he ticks a lot of boxes that I'd want to back him as a dog here. And I do think if he gets through the early portions of this fight, he likely takes over down the stretch. Not that Jourdain's cardio is bad, but I think if he's taking the shots, it means he's probably taking over the fight. But yeah, it's like how high is Jourdain's chance to finish him? And I think it's pretty fucking high, which makes it like pretty tough because like I want to bet Arosa here. I do think he has more skills that are translatable to this level of MMA, but I also just think Jourdain's going to get him. And so I don't know if Arosa got out to like plus 185, plus 200, I'd probably consider it. But yeah, I think Jourdain's probably going to KO him, to be honest, as well.
It's also, just have real quick. It's also worth noting that out of Arosa's losses in the UFC, like a lot of its early KO losses, like Sung Woo Choi KO'd him in the first round, Devontae Smith KO'd him in the first round. If you go back like even further, like I'm looking at his record, like Bobby McIntyre KO'd him in the first round, like when he was in the UFC the first time. Teruto Ishihara,
Emmers hurt him in the first round too.
Yeah, and it's just like a lot of that win condition is.
It's kind of. It's kind of like Cerrone, who it always seems like if Cerrone can get through round 1, like he usually is fine, but getting through round 1's an adventure. I hear that.
Yeah.
But moving on, we got Jack Shore, Ludovic Shalinian. I played like a little bit of Shore at minus 275 at BetMGM when it was like $1 behind the rest of the market. But I mean, I don't have any strong thoughts here. Shalinian's not really quite ready for the UFC, and I don't think he's a great grappler, and Shore is a very good grappler. Kind of think he just gets him down and does whatever he wants to him. On top of which, I trust Shore's cardio to go 15 minutes at that pace. And so it's just really hard for me to see Shalinian like winning this fight. Like I think the line right now, like the minus 500 or so, is close to right. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And as you know, like I was talking to you about possibly trying to get that early number because I saw it come up because as you do the same thing that I do. I tape fights pretty far in advance. So when I saw that line come out and I just was like, yeah, it's not going to hold. But I couldn't hit it because of state restrictions. And also like when I tip lines, I'm trying to make them widely available to people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Shore is a justified big favorite in this fight. His opponent's kind of one-dimensional. Obviously has that wrestling background, but I don't think it translates super well to the cage. As we know, Shore is pretty well-rounded. I like Shore's MMA grappling. And I haven't hit it yet, but I think Shore inside distance, Shore sub are both worth a pop. I feel like once they start kind of getting in those grappling exchanges, it might really only take one time of Shore ending up on top for him to finish the fight.
Yeah, and he's pretty proactive about looking for finishes on top too, so makes sense. Moving on, I believe you have a play here. Jian Kim taking on Molly McCann.
I do, and normally this isn't the kind of fight that I love playing, but I looked into this, and I feel like Kim is the pretty significantly better boxer here. She's a 10-inch reach advantage, which is pretty significant. And I guess my really only concern is McCann sticking her on bottom for extended periods of time. But when I looked into McCann's wrestling and grappling, like it's okay. It's not anything special. And she struggles to hold girls down that really aren't great grapplers. Like I want to, off the top of my head, I want to say it was Belbita was getting up against her, and Belbita's not anything special in the grappling department. So I think McCann probably has some trouble closing the distance to even set those shots up. Like she might be shooting from far out. And it's not like Kim's a great grappler, but she seems serviceable from a grappling perspective. So I think it evens Kim's worth a small play.
Yeah, I haven't decided if I'm going to play her. I'm probably going to play Kim, to be honest. I mostly agree. Like that's really – if I knew for 100% certainty that Kim wouldn't get stuck on bottom at all, I'd have her like 70% here, to be honest. I don't really think, I know McCann has thrown good volume in the past, but every time she's fought someone who's even competent at striking, they've lit her up. And I kind of think the same thing happens here. And I think Kim is actually a pretty decent striker. She lost the Grasso fight cleanly, but Grasso, she had some competitive minutes in that fight. She's fought girls that are just on a different level than Molly McCann, and I think she's on a different level than McCann. The concern is, her takedown defense hasn't been tested that much. Like, it's bad percentage-wise, but we also really just have – she got head and arm thrown twice against Antonina, and it's like we haven't really seen it, so it could be better than I think. But it's not great, and that's the assumption I'm going off of. But like you said, it's like unless she just really doesn't try to get up, I don't know that McCann can hold her down. Like McCann does not have a good top game at all. It's very loose, and she should be able to pop up. And so that is kind of my fear. But yeah, I think Kim is pretty clearly the side. Like you couldn't bet McCann here. Like she's completely checkmated on the feet, and so that's my view. Moving on, we got a fun one. Any take here? Paddy Pimblett making his debut against Luigi Vendramini. What are your thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, dude, I thought I was going to like Vendramini more pre-tape than I did post. I was on Vendramini in his last fight, and I thought it was a little bit of a letdown spot, even though he had that big round 3. I don't know. Like, it's hard to tell what Pimblett is. Like, I feel like I have a pretty good idea. Like, I bet Soren Bach a few years ago when they fought, and even Pimblett made that scary for a second when he got a rear naked choke really deep on Bach. But his last couple fights have kind of been against cans, and he's pretty inactive too. And as a young guy being pretty inactive, it's kind of difficult to measure like where the improvements have come from. Vendramini has that grappling credential too, but I feel like Pimblett's probably a little bit better of a grappler, but I also feel like Paddy's probably not good on the feet, and we don't see him a lot there, which is to my earlier point. It's kind of a bit of a question mark with fighting cans and the layoffs and being inexperienced, but also being young, so there can be improvements. Like if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably play Vendramini, and like I still might, depending on where price goes, but like it's not a super confident take. I even thought his loss to Dos Santos was probably like his most like outside of that early finish he got a couple
Yeah.
fights ago, was probably his most impressive performance. He came in on short notice, up a weight. He had Dos Santos in trouble, but I don't know. This is just one of those fights where like I almost hope, like if I don't play this fight, I'll be rooting for Pimblett to get a submission so that they're
Yes.
yeah, like there will come a time, as I'm sure you're well aware of, there will come a time where if Pimblett wins this fight, that there will be a great spot to bet against him, like a great spot. So that's my jumbled thoughts, but curious to hear what you've got.
Yeah, I mostly agree. Like my view on Pimblett is he can probably sub some low-level guys who have no idea what they're doing on the ground in the UFC, but he is like hard capped as to where he could go. Like the first guys that know how a basic getup and basic submission defense are going to just ruin him.
Yeah.
And I don't really see that changing, you know, like he's shown, I agree with you. There's some questions about him making improvements, but he showed such incompetence on the feet. Like the improvements would have to be drastic for him to have that here. And Vendramini, like I don't hate him. Like I agree with you. He looked okay against Zaleski. Even the Ziam fight, like I put a lot of that on Vendramini for just not being active enough throughout the fight. But Ziam's, I'm not super high on him, but he is a tough boxer. And if you're not like used to having to close distance against someone like that, that can happen, you know. That's not going to happen here. And on the feet, I think he's going to be able to handle patio wherever he wants. My question is, look, Vendramini's shown good offensive jiu-jitsu, but not everybody is good on their backs. A lot of people aren't, and we don't really know what his takedown defense is like. And so, like, if Vendramini's takedown defense and his get-up game are fine, he could be hindsight minus 300 here, right? But if it turns out he plays guard, or, you know, it turns out he's just bad on his back, he could look hindsight plus 250. And so that's kind of like where I am, where it's like, I think he's clearly got the higher ceiling than Pimblett. He's clearly the more well-rounded fighter. But that one question is a big enough question where I don't really want to get involved at this number. Like plus 150, plus 185, I'd be interested, but I'm passing as well.
Yeah.
Moving on, we got Khalil Roundtree taking on Modestas Bukauskas. This is kind of an interesting fight. Like I was so low on Bukauskas, it's unbelievable. Like I bet Michailidis against him in his debut. That was fun, losing 2 units on the cage door, KOing him. But and I faded him in his last fight too against Lord McCall. And you know, the reason is pretty simple. He can't grapple and he's a punching bag on the feet. And so, you know, looking at Roundtree, who has 1 round of cardio, but while he has cardio, is pretty dangerous. I don't know. It's weird. Like, I want to play Roundtree at plus 120. He's a far more experienced fighter. He's faced better competition. The opportunities to finish early in this fight are there. But it's just like, it's so hard for me to get on board with that, because if Bukauskas survives the storm early, there is going to almost certainly be a pivot point where he takes over the fight. And I also just kind of think Roundtree in general, if you pressure him like Bukauskas does, tends to be really fragile and crack pretty easily under pressure. And so, again, I think Roundtree is the side here, but I don't feel confident enough in his ability to win a fight that gets extended, plus trust how he's going to react to the pressure of Bukauskas. What do you think?
Dude, my thoughts here are 4 letters. PASS. So nothing to do with it. I don't have a good read on it. I taped it. Like I didn't improve my read at all. Like I'm completely staying away from this one.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and even like the KO numbers are not great either. Like Roundtree KO is 40 cents higher than his decision line. So yeah, pass it. Moving on, we got David Zawada taking on Alex Moreno. Any thoughts here, Andrew?
Yeah, I kind of thought, like, when I taped this a few days ago or a week ago, whatever it was, I was kind of like, I think Zawada might not be a bad spot here. And I kind of just waited on it too long, and then the line kind of crashed in. And I kind of think I just said kind of like 4 times in a row, but I think it's closer to where it should be now, to the point where I probably won't play it unless it goes back up. Yeah, not too crazy thoughts. Again, this isn't like super conviction. I also think it's weird, and I've said this a couple times now when it's come up recently. Don't you think it's weird that they gave Alex Moreno the Pettis and Cerrone fights back to back? Like, wouldn't it have made more sense to give that to like a promising prospect or something?
Dude, I actually was thinking that it's bizarre. Like the UFC must see something in him, but like he's pretty boring. You know, I guess he's an okay fighter, but he's not young.
Yeah, dude, dude. Like, he's just like some regular guy. Like, not taking anything away from him. He's just like a journeyman fighter, like a mid-tier level fighter, if that's the right word. But like, I think with the Pettis fight, it was weird because like the Cerrone one, you can make a case. It's like, okay, it was short. They just like that was Pettis' last UFC fight. Pretty much everyone knew it. You could have given that to someone like who you think has potential to like start building a name off Pettis. Like, pretty sure Moreno's been in the UFC for like 6-7 years now, and he's a pretty good record. Like, if I had to guess off the top of my head, like he's probably like 8-4, but he's never going to be like a top 10 guy, and it's pretty clear. I think he's in his early 30s, maybe. Again, that's off the top of my head. I'd guess he's like 31, 32. But yeah, I thought that was
31. Yeah.
Yeah, like I thought that was weird matchmaking, but again, that's just a little side note. Yeah, like Moreno's okay. Like, he throws some volume. He's pretty athletically limited. Zawada's big. I mean, he just lost a split decision to what the hell's the guy's name?
Ramzat Emeev.
Yeah, who I kind of felt like going into that fight, Zawada was value too, but there was just such limited tape on him. I mean, he only fought once this year, and before that, I don't think he had fought since the Abubakar Nurmagomedov fight,
which was a minute fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, those are my thoughts. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same. I still kind of think Zawada's value. It's really one of those things, though, where it's like, tell me how much Zawada is going to grapple, and I'll tell you whether or not he's value, right? Like, if you're telling me he's going to attempt 8 takedowns, yes, I will back him plus 120 if that is what's going to happen. Like, I don't think, obviously Moreno has pretty good jiu-jitsu, but he is a horrible takedown defense, and his get-up game isn't great either. And so, yeah, if I knew Zawada was going to come out and just dive on legs, I'd be happy to back him in this spot. But it's not really always his MO. And striking, it might be close, right? Like, I think it could be close, but I do respect, even though it's kind of janky, like, I kind of do respect Moreno striking. It is effective. He gets off a ton of volume, which is hard to keep up with at that division. Like, he beat Max Griffin in a stand-up fight, which, Max Griffin's pretty good. Yeah, that's impressive. And so, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where, if I had to make a bet, I would bet Zawada here, but I'm not confident enough that he's going to take the path to least resistance. And if he doesn't, I favor Moreno. I don't want to say super significantly, but, comfortably on the feet. I don't think the margins will be that close.
Dude, it's funny that you mentioned the Max Griffin thing, because, like, that fight alone is kind of what keeps me off of betting against Moreno, because I almost use Max Griffin as like a measuring stick for like how good. And it's like, okay, like, that was a close fight. There were a couple big moments for Moreno that won him the fight, but like, if you could take rounds off Max Griffin, like, I feel like you're pretty good. Like, he's the guy I use as a measuring stick for like, okay, are you good or are you not? Like, and I don't mean like good as in like top 5 level good, but like,
yeah,
he's almost like a gatekeeper of the top level fighters, so to speak. That's how I use him, as like a measuring stick. So that fight.
No, Griffin's like, his ceiling is like top 20, and like he'll never be top 15 probably, but he can guard the top 15. I completely agree. And so that's like, I haven't seen anything from Zawada to suggest, not just he can win that kind of fight, but to think his ceiling is nearly as high as Moreno's in the kickboxing. So
yeah, I think Max Griffin 6-6 or 7-6 in the UFC against like all that mid-tier guys, and I feel like he's such a good measuring stick. If you want to know,
he's fought some insane competition, actually, Griffin.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm pretty sure he fought like.
He got executed by Colby.
Yeah, he fought Colby. He fought Zaleski dos Santos. Like, he does have a couple good names in there.
Yeah, he's not bad. But anyway, we move on. Co-main event of the evening. I do have a bet here. I got Sergey Spivak. He's taking on Tom Aspinall. I have a small play on Spivak. I guess my feeling on Aspinall is I'm coming around a little bit on Aspinall as a fighter, but at the end of the day, the guy still has, I think he still has under 10 fights, and he has 8 minutes in the octagon. And really what we've seen was him one-punch Collier, quickly dominate Alan Badeau, who is not even almost UFC level, and then, almost finish Arlovsky in the first, and then start to visibly slow down and have one of the weirdest finishing sequences I've ever seen. He hits a takedown, and Arlovsky literally just turned his neck like pretty much right to him and got submitted. And so I don't really think there's that much data on Aspinall and what happens if he gets, extended in fights. The only other time other than the Arlovski fight, he's gone past one. I believe he got heel hooked and he looked like he was slowing down precipitously in England. Now, it was a couple years ago, so he may be fine now. But on the other side, Spivak, and it's kind of similar, Andrew, to what you were just saying. Like, I don't think Spivak's anything special, but in terms of heavyweight, he's probably in that 10 to 20 range, somewhere in there. Like, he won a striking fight with Carlos Felipe, who's decent. He's a decent grappler. His defensive grappling is a bit suspect, but he's the kind of guy that's like, he's going to probably be there for 3 rounds with Aspinall, even though he did gas out in his last fight. But, he has, prior to that, went 3 hard rounds of Felipe. So I'm not overly concerned about cardio. But yeah, I mean, look, I favor Aspinall. I think he has higher finishing upside here. I think there's enough questions about his cardio and, to be honest, about his volume too. Like, he's getting badly out attempted by his opponents, even though he's outlanding them, to fade him against Spivak here. Like, again, I don't really think Spivak's upside is nearly as high, but he's a decent heavyweight striker and a decent heavyweight grappler who we've seen go 3 rounds multiple times, where we've never seen from Aspinall. And to me, 5 UFC wins, a lot of octagon time. It's enough for me to take the pop here at plus 230. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's so funny because what you're saying right now is like everything I was saying before the last Aspinall fight. He kind of convinced me a little more with the Arlovski thing. Like, how I just said Max Griffin I use as a measuring stick?
Yeah.
I use Andrei Arlovski as a measuring stick at heavyweight. Like, they tried to give Tanner Bozier Arlovski to like make a name off of him, and he was like minus 400 and he couldn't pass the Arlovski test. Chase Sherman a couple months ago couldn't pass the Arlovski test. So I feel like that's another measuring stick. And for me, I actually like Aspinall's game. And I was saying this earlier. I think like at heavyweight is so bad that I think guys like Aspinall will just like be top 10, like probably not like top 3, top 5, but will hang around that like 5 to 10, 10 to 15 spot just from like having minimal skills and athleticism. Like, I feel like Aspinall is the much better striker here, and I think Spivak probably has to gas him, and I think that's a tall order to do on short notice when you're probably getting touched up on the feet. And we've been seeing a ton from Aspinall's grappling game. Like, I mean, like, to your point, he took down Arlovski the first time he tried and choked him out 5 seconds later. So it's like, I don't know what exactly to take from that other than like like, I don't know.
But dude, that scene was so weird. Like, it was bizarre. Like, Arlovski, he wasn't even on his back all the way.
Arlovski, like did it so quick. Like, it was like almost like in my head, I was like, if everyone shot on Arlovski that quick in his career, like, would he be like tapping out to everyone, or is Aspinall just like some BJJ ace? Like, I know he is a black belt, but like, that could mean anything. It could.
Yeah. Kelvin Gastelum has a black belt.
You could be a Kevin Holland black belt, or you could be a Damian Maia black belt. It's like, we don't know. But at heavyweight, like, I feel like just having any kind of jiu-jitsu acumen is pretty rare. Like, there are guys who are at heavyweight that have nothing on the ground, like nothing. Like, I know people, like, I used to have a wrestling coach in college. He was a really good wrestler. He's probably like 5 years older than I am. He has like a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and I would look at some of these heavy, and he fought a few times. He was like 4-1 as a pro, whatever. And I was like, if he could get these guys down, like, it's over. Like, it's just a matter of like, will he take this guy down before he gets knocked out? And that's how, like, I feel like some of these heavyweights, if you could get them down to the ground once, it's done. Like they're turtles off their back, and they gas quicker. They have no grappling. But that just furthers my point that I think Aspinall actually has a lot of potential at heavyweight, not because he's like amazing, just because the division is so like shallow.
No, and I agree with you, but it's funny because you said, the Arlovski fight is what convinced you. And I don't want to say it didn't convince me, but I also thought, like, because again, the finish was so quick and so bizarre. Like, I didn't think it was particularly meaningful. And like the first minute of that round and the last minute and a half of round 1, Arlovski was starting to get off a lot and was starting to outpace him a little bit. And so it's like, I don't know how that would have played out. That might have just been him like resetting from going off on that crazy combination. But like, what if that's a trend? Because if it's a trend, suddenly you get to like the 6-7 minute mark, and then maybe Spivak's just sticking a jab in his face over and over. We don't really know.
That's why I wasn't running to play Aspinall like minus 300 or whatever. But he's kind of getting to that range where I'm thinking about it. Let me ask you this: how would you line Spivak versus Arlovski?
I'd probably line it like Arlovski minus 125 to 150. I guess.
I was gonna say Arlovsky like minus 150, but like small
Yeah.
favorite. Yeah, it's just I wonder like is Arlovsky still in the UFC?
Yeah, I think so. But I would imagine. Would you reline Aspinall though? Is like minus 300 against Arlovsky like he was? Like
I feel like he finishes that fight at such a high clip. I probably would. Like I don't look at that and go, oh, Arlovsky should be like -9, like he wins 9 out of 10. But like I still think he probably wins that at 75%. Just because especially seeing how quickly the grappling ended too. Like, is that like a super repeatable outcome?
that is true. Like that's a great point.
Like, can Aspinall just shoot a takedown and 10 seconds later Arlovsky's tapping? Because if that's the truth, what's like to your point, like I don't know, like he'd be a minus a million. Like if it could be that, if it was that easy.
But yeah, I mean, look, I don't. It's I wouldn't say it's a confident play in Spivak. Like I have Aspinall at like 60%. I think he finishes it early at a pretty good clip. But I do think, if this goes 15, I'd rather be holding a Spivak ticket than an Aspinall ticket at Heavy Juice. So
yeah, no, it's a fair point. I get the angle. Like, and it was funny. I was saying to someone, I can't remember who I was talking to before, but I was saying like typically this is like this type of play is one I'd make, but for whatever reason, I just am not on the boat this time.
No, I hear it. And Aspinall, I'll be honest, he has that sort of feel to me too. I just feel like I have to stick to my process, which is, taking Spivak in this spot. So we'll see what happens with it.
Dude, I feel I'd have to go back and look, but I feel like if you bet Spivak in every one of his fights, you'd like have made a good amount of money by now.
Yeah, I mean, he was a dog in a bunch too.
I'm gonna go start. You're going to the next one. I'm gonna start pulling up these.
So anyway, we're moving on. We got the main event. We got Derek Brunson versus Darren Till here. And I think it's a pretty interesting fight. I'll save most of the red meat for you, Andrew. I'm thinking about a play on Till. I still haven't fully decided yet. I've backed Brunson in all of his last 3 fights. But the thing is, as good as he's looked, and we want to say different Brunson, if you actually kind of look, none of those wins have aged well. If he was to be relined against Heinisch, against Edmund or Holland, he'd probably be relined over -200, -250 in all of those fights. Like those were fights that just turned out to be mismatches. Heinisch ended up being a bust. Edmund, we don't really know what he is, but he's not ready for this level. We know that. And Holland can't grapple at all. And so I do appreciate the winning streak that Brunson's on right now, but I don't think it's particularly meaningful when it comes to this matchup. And I guess looking at this matchup, it's like I've always been very, very wary about betting Darren Till because of the volume, because it is an issue. It's the biggest issue in his career. It's the reason he lost to Robert Whittaker. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, he's got volume issues, but from a technique standpoint, he's one of the best strikers in the sport. The guy had competitive striking matches with Stephen Thompson. He had beat Stephen Thompson. He had a competitive striking match with Robert Whittaker. You just don't see guys that are doing that. And so to me, even with Brunson at a volume edge, I kind of think he's not going to get much volume off at all against Till because no one does. And I think if he tries to just go the volume path, he's probably going to pay for it a lot. And so I think Till on the feet here does Brunson pretty much however he wants. Maybe some rounds are competitive because of the low volume, but again, I'm just not confident that Brunson can get anything done. And then it's like, can he out-grapple him for 25? And I don't think Till has great grappling, but I think he's got pretty good takedown defense, and his get-ups are good enough, and Brunson does not have great top control, that I think he should be able to get up pretty frequently here. And Brunson was gassing early in his last 2 fights, but managed to, weather the storm because he was fighting guys that couldn't, deal with, wrestling at all. That's not the case here. So I do like Till. I'm just still debating whether to bet it. What do you think?
Yeah, so as you know, I've been talking to you about this fight for like a month, maybe longer. So I do have a lot of thoughts about it. But real quick, I looked up the Spivak numbers. They aren't as like he only was a dog once, but he was a big dog to Tuivasa. He was -175 against Felipe, which like I feel like is a pretty fair line in retrospect. And then -233 against Vandera. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And then -220 against Olenek. So for some reason, I thought he was a dog more. I think I just remember that Tuivasa one where he was like +300. Yeah. Tuivasa can't grapple for anything. But anyway, yeah, my thoughts on Till Brunson, I think, are pretty similar to yours. Going into tape, in my head, I was like, okay, Brunson is going to be reliant on wrestling to a decision here to win. And go after the tape, I don't think that's a viable path for him. Till is hard to take down. He's hard to hold down. He's big. And I just don't – even if Brunson gets him down a couple times early, I favor Till's cardio way better. I say way better. I favor Till's cardio over Brunson. So it's like if Brunson gets a couple takedowns, Till makes him work. Till gets back to his feet, and Brunson shoots another couple takedowns. Like he might be done after a second or third round. And his cardio hasn't looked amazing. He gets hurt in every fight. Even a fight he was dominating against Kevin Holland, he gets hurt. But coming out of tape, I feel like Brunson's only path to victory is catching Till on the feet, which is possible because Till kind of is okay a lot of times with having a dick measuring contest because his power is so good and he's not afraid to rely on his chin, which is something McGregor did for a long period of time in his career. He would be okay with, yeah, let's throw down, because he'd be missing punch by this much, knowing that he has the touch of death in his left hand, and Till kind of does the same thing right now. So coming out of tape, I feel like Brunson's main path to victory is catching Till on the feet, because sometimes Till is a little too willing to trade. I think skill-wise on the feet, this isn't even really that close. I think Till is the better striker. I think Till is more power. I think Till is the better chin. I think Till is better cardio. I think Till is more closer to his prime. The competition Till's fought recently, like he proved that he could go 5 competitive rounds with Robert Whittaker, which I don't think there are a lot of people at 185 pounds that could do that. And yeah, so long story short, I had Till in a parlay, second leg of a parlay at -152. It has since gotten a little wider than that. I still think it's not wide enough. It sucks because FanDuel opened these props like a month ago, and they had Till KO like +330 or something like that. And I was just waiting for it to become like more widely available so I could play it and tip it. And now it's down to like +175. So I'm sticking with the money line for now. I think Brunson needs a KO to win this fight. I think the narrative that the wrestling path is there is overblown. And I think Till is going to be hard to grapple. And I think Till's the side, and I think he wins this fight at a pretty high clip.
Yeah, I agree with you about that. And it's also like, even if he hits takedowns, like look at the Edmund fight. Edmund literally was just flopping to his stomach and getting up. Holland just doesn't try to get up. He sits in guard. But like Brunson, he really doesn't have many fights in his career where he's hit a bunch of takedowns, gotten like 10 minutes of control. It's usually 3 or 4 takedowns in like 2 or 3 minutes. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It seems obvious, and that worries me a little bit, but it's so hard for me to imagine Brunson having significant standing success outside of, like you said, a flash KO, So, but yeah, guys, that'll do it for the night. What was that?
No, I said we ran through this.
We did. We had 10 fights, man. It kind of sucks, to be honest. Dude, there's only 10 fights.
We should talk about some other bullshit. What are the lines that stand out for next week?
You want to talk about? We're not talking about next week. There is no next week.
What are some KSW lines that stand out to you?
I haven't looked at anything KSW related.
I'm obviously kidding.
It's like, I've been planning to actually do that, but I just don't have the fucking time, man. Trying to stay ahead on tape for the UFC and fucking waddling in the filth that is Contenders just does not leave much time.
Tell the people about Octagon, Robert Pucock versus Mate Curtises.
Anyway, guys, thank you for coming out tonight. As usual, you got me, John, at MMA Fox. Andrew, you want to plug your ship?
Yeah, my Twitter's at Bets and Picks MMA. I have a Patreon. I've been doing a YouTube thing recently, so I'll ask my buddy here to put that in the description if you guys want to click on that. It's different than this because, like, obviously these guys do a really good job of going through the whole card breakdown. I try to pick a fight or two that I want to talk about and make like a 5-minute video on it. So if you want to check that out, I'd appreciate it. Mr. Stargarian, I appreciate you having me on as always, and best of luck this weekend.
Yeah, best of luck to everybody else. Thanks for coming on, Andrew. Take it easy, guys.
Peace.
Peace.